Welcome to the EMN podcast, where philosophy meets disaster and uncomfortable truths meet the profession we call emergency management. This is not safe space thinking. This is the arena. Let's begin. Good morning, good afternoon, depending on where you are at in this fine world. The Northeast is getting pounded with snow today. Friend of mine, Andrew, you guys all know Andrew. He's been a guest host on here. Dan and I known him for a long time here. And his house, just showed some pictures today, is just it looks like he's up in Mammoth Mountain, Dan. And then but a tree fell over. You know, it's wild. So I'm gonna have 80-degree weather here in Southern California. So that's what I got going on.
It's well, weather even in Gilroy, it's cold at night and then it warms up during the day. So it's kind of all over. Then we got the atmospheric rivers, multiple being coming in, and a lot of this contributing to the weather that we're seeing across the country. So yeah,
it's a cyclone bomb in the Northeast.
Is that what they're saying?
That's what they call it, cyclone bomb. So out here we're planning for, in my area at least, and I know 16 other cities are too, we're planning for the Olympics. Well, we're doing that too. Planning for the Olympics. The Olympics just ended with USA men's and women's hockey beating Canada. To my friends in Canada, sorry, not sorry. Go USA. And to the rest of the world, we'll be having Olympics here in 2028 in Los Angeles, so we're planning for that. I can't wait to invite the world here. But before that happens, we have the World Cup coming, and we're planning for that. That's in 16 different cities across the United States, Canada, and Mexico. And so the world is coming to North America. So we're planning for that, have meetings for that. And this kind of started me thinking why I wrote that piece this weekend, and what I'm calling it, the emergency management dilemma. I wrote a piece last week talking about soft power and how do we do things, and kind of goes together with this emergency management dilemma where we have responsibilities, right? We have to do the planning. We host these meetings. We bring everybody together, but we don't own any of the pieces. And so that's the dilemma. How do we talk about security and safety, but we don't own security and safety. Talk about response, the side of it. We don't own the response. We just have the responsibility at times. And that's where it kind of runs into this problem where if we have the responsibility and sometimes the blame when things go sideways, right? We've seen this happen in various different communities across the nation where the emergency manager gets let go when something goes sideways, but yet we don't own any of the assets. How do we manage that, Dan?
I don't know that it really is perspective. So a lot of this is not necessarily our responsibility. It's just it is involved in the work that we do. So some of it is our responsibility, and if it's our responsibility, then we have to own it. There are lots of things out there in the emergency management realm that are kind of in our space that we don't own, but we influence heavily, or we should. So all of it boils back down to, are we doing our job in coordination, collaboration? Collaboration is going to be your big key right there, because if you're collaborating with the key individuals and those who actually do own it and do hold responsibility and are partnering with them in that and helping them ensure that they're successful, then it won't fall back on you in that way. What we see, and one of the things I know you're referencing, especially with EMs that get blamed or losing their jobs based off of something that falls back on them. That's for there's accountability parts of it. Did they do what they were accountable for? And if they can't show that they did what they were supposed to be accountable for, they can't justify keeping their job. Politics is heavily influenced in the EM decisions. So if we can't prove and we can't justify and we can't show that the things that we're doing are beneficial and that you did your job as you were supposed to be doing, it's really easy for in the political realm for them to say, well, we're getting rid of somebody so because it looks good in the news media, for them to say, well, this individual didn't do their job. This is the result of it. Now we're firing them or laying them off or getting their resignation or whatever, right? I think we have to look at that as another reason why emergency managers should not be in the background. They should not be, as we mentioned a few weeks ago. If you're invisible behind your keyboard, yes, so easy for them to put blame on you and to dismiss you, and they cut your funding and to cut your positions. We got to be visible. We got to be heard. We got to be seen, and it's for those reasons. Because if we can say during those times that we were accountable, we did our responsibilities, we coordinated, we supported, we partnered with, and we did all these things that we were supposed to do. How are they going to justify blaming you for anything?
Well, I mean, we've seen this go back to Hurricane Katrina. We can probably go further than that, but that was the first big disaster that I was actually really a part of outside of some wildland fires here in California. They fired Michael Brown over it. And you can argue whether he belonged in that position or not. That's a whole other story. But the fact that when the White House was looking for someone to put the blame on, it was the FEMA administrator, right? And so, they let him go. We've seen this happen time and time again. In other Hawaii, a really good example, right? During the fires in Hawaii, who got let go? What was the emergency manager that got let go? And they're blaming him for not.
Both of those situations that you're pointing out, there was an incredible lack of, and I mean, I don't want to be completely disrespectful about it, but there was a complete lack of accountability there. Everybody was blaming someone else.
Mm-hmm.
They were blaming someone else. It was not my fault. That's not my responsibility. Instead of saying, ultimately coming with this, these are the things we did. This is how we did it. These are the partners. These are the things we put in place. There was none of that. There was like, well, it wasn't my fault. It wasn't my fault. They did this. They did this. They told us that. There was so much of that. There was no accountability whatsoever. Nobody was taking responsibility. So it's so easy for them to say, well, we're going to let this person go, because you ultimately have, and you got people in positions that shouldn't be there. And to what extent are you able to justify your actions?
I saw a post that inspired me to write an email to leadership team. And the post was from David Marquette, who wrote the book Turn the Ship Around. And the boat that he was on, the submarine, was called the Santa Fe. And he had a thing that said there was no they on the Santa Fe, right? And I went, you know what? Thinking about this, I'm like, there is no they. When we start thinking about and saying they, who are they? Who are the they, right? And now kind of thinking about that and digesting that, it goes into they really truly is you, right? And what I mean by this is if you can't say who they are, like Dan, if I said, oh, they told me, Dan, whatever, it's truly you, right? And you are not having extreme ownership over that decision. You are allowing the appearance of outside issues to have your decision being made, but you're afraid to stand behind that decision. And so you use the term they. And that's my true feeling on this, is every time anybody says they, the proverbial they, it's you. You're the one who's making the decision. You just are afraid to stand behind your ownership of it.
Or lack of decision. There's a lot
or lack of decision. Either way.
A lot of it is, yeah. Well, I think
blame shifting.
Well, it is what it is. Exactly. When you see, a lot of it's a lack of accountability. part of it. They don't want to take responsibility, that accountability of the thing that should have been done that wasn't done. So it's easy to say, well, they did this, they did that, they didn't partner to collaborate. But yeah, but if you can't say who, you can't identify where that identification, that justification is, then you're just putting off blame at that point. Just Absolutely. Yeah, well, that's what they told me. Well, who's they? That's what they said to do. Well, who's they? But even in the lack of that, a true leader, a true emergency manager says, if we're going to go with they, okay, let's say they. A true leader, a true emergency manager says, they are not doing this, so we should. Right? They and we. We, a lot of time, is me as well. Because we, as an individual, I may not have a we. It's me. It's me doing everything, right? That's the way a lot of it is throughout the country. There's one person that's doing the job, and then they feel, and I wrote an article on this too, just because you're the only person that's doing EM, doesn't mean you're alone. You build a team, right? So how do you do that? But a lot of people working around the country is that they use that as a crutch. Well, it's just me. I'm a one-person office, or whatever. But you don't have to be a one-person function. It might be a one-person office, but you don't have to be a one-person function.
Sure.
And that's where a lot of it's a switch, and it's a shift in our mindsets and our capabilities. I may be a one-person shop, but my capabilities and my resources are as vast as I want them to be. They can go as deep as I build it, but you have to build it, and it doesn't happen overnight. It's a consistent, ongoing effort, just like your planning processes and your trainings and your exercises. Nothing in EM is ever done. I wrote an article on that as well.
Yep.
It's never done. It's never done. The things we do every day, they're never done. We have to do them over and over and over and over and over again. It's the consistency that really builds the you as an individual, as an emergency manager, but your program that you're in the serving of the community. And there's that lack of consistency that really bites people in the butt, because they stopped doing something, or they didn't start doing something, or they got rejected once and they stopped asking, or that's the problem that we see the most, is that we're not consistent. If I get turned down for a proposal, does that mean I never put it in again? Does that mean I never broached the subject again? Does that mean I never asked for more money or more training or more assets? No. You continue. Eventually it'll go through. Your argument has to strengthen as well.
I got to build on that, Dan, because I think you're absolutely correct, because there's two things that we should be. We preach this, right? Not just the consistency, right? But we preach resilience, and we teach and we preach tenacity. And I think sometimes that the collective we, when I say we, and sometimes me, right? When we go to that, is we go, okay, fine, they told me no, I'm just gonna sit on it, because I'm gonna sulk in the corner because I was told no, and I'm gonna say, someday you're gonna wish you didn't tell me no, because the disaster is going to occur, and you're gonna ask what happened, and we're gonna say, oh, they told me not to do it, right? And that's when I go back into the they turns into a me, right? Because we go, okay, fine, you tell me no on this, let's find a workaround, right? What is the workaround? How do we get to that yes, right? And maybe that no that we get is a temporary no, right? Budget issues or timing, or something, other priority is there that we didn't argue well enough to say that no, our priority is more important than this, right? Is it more important? And I'll put this in perspective in the cost, right? Is it more important to get that new frontline fire engine or ambulance, right? On that budget side? Well, maybe this year it is, right? Because there's a timeline. They have a time set and mileage that we need to work on. And maybe that's why you couldn't get your disaster trailer, right? If you need to get both, right? So the city council has to make a decision. It wasn't a no forever. It was just a no right now. and then so hold on to that proposal, think about it for a bit, and then once you see the budget getting cleared back up, then you can go and propose for that disaster trailer for the second time around, and maybe you get that yes, and then work those angles and why you need them, or maybe there's a grant out there that you could find that gets you to yes, so work with them to get you there, because the world's going to keep going forward and that disaster will occur, and you can't turn around in the midst of the disaster and say, well, city council told me no for that disaster trailer, that's why we can't do this. Well, what were you doing before that trailer occurred, that you're looking for? So
I think I 100% agree with you. I think that, but I think there's and then you have the individual, because we just mentioned that, okay, they get a no, so they sit on it, and then they put it in a binder somewhere that says, oh, I got my no, I tried. Well, there's so many other resources, and there's out of the box thinking. There's other ways to do things. Have you looked at grants? Have you looked at other people funding it? Outside resources that could potentially help you sponsor something to do like that. Do you have a grant writer? Access to a grant writer? Do you have someone in your organization who actively looks for funding? Do you know any? Do they know you? Did your proposal have enough details in it to justify what you're asking for? Should you can you add more details, more justification, more detail is the key there. A lot of it is like, we say we need this thing. Why do you need that thing? What's it going to help you do? What's it going to help you solve? How many people can it benefit? We got to put as much detail into these things as possible, so when they have questions, we can point to it and say, yeah, per this, per my research, this is what it shows, per what we've been dealing with. And we don't see enough of that in emergency management. And I'm guilty of it too when I first started. And it's not necessarily about not wanting to do it. It's just having the education and the desire to look and say, what will make it better? What will make it less likely to be denied? Or because there's people that say, well, look, we can't do this now, but we can put this in. We can look at this, and we can look at other forms of funding potentially in the near future, or we can look at other sources and resources that we have out there. It's branching out. It's being resourceful.
And that's some of the young emergency managers, and you're just kind of alluding to that, don't have the wherewithal or understanding that when the city council says, and I'm blaming the city council because they're the budget deciders, right? When the city council says, no, you can't have this in your budget, they're like, okay, city council told me I can't do it. That's when you go back to the whole they thing, right? They told me I couldn't do it. But no, you gotta understand, bring that back in and be tenacious about it and be resourceful and be resilient on this. And it's not that they told you no, right? It's that the city council is making a decision based upon what they feel was best for the city at that particular time within the budget constraints that are there. We're not the federal government. We can't just create money, right? So there's money that has to come in, and it's very finite, even if you have a surplus, right? So how do you do this, right? You work within the system that you're there, and going back to the emergency management dilemma, right? Or maybe even if you want to call it the paradox, right? Is the fact that we might not have decision-making power, right? We may not have ownership of assets, right? That we need to use, right? But you can't sit behind the keyboard and dream about it. You have to go out and make those relationships and build upon that, and not trading those business cards over the proverbial trunk of the car, right? Understanding who is in charge of these assets that you have, and how do you work them into your use, and how do you make yourself as valuable as possible for that particular agency that's going to come to you for your expertise and for your understanding and for that community that you're building as well. And this is where we become such an asset to the city, right, that you're working for, or to the organization. I keep saying city, could be any organization, is when you're building that program with your stakeholders, whether it's the community members or the organization itself. Like, say you're working for like a large hospital, do you talk to every sector of your hospital? Do you know the janitorial staff? Do you know all the nursing? Do you know the head of the surgical team, that you might be working with? I'm using it as a hospital as an example, right? Like that. How do you fit into that when you have to do a shutdown. When you look at 5 days at Memorial, again, with another reference to Katrina, what were the decision-making processes that were there, and why were some of those decisions made potentially, criminally? If you read the book, what was their emergency management team doing, and before the crisis, and some of those decisions and some of those problems that they had could have been avoided, I think. So we need to make ourselves more visible with our decision makers, not less visible. And we don't need to when we get that no, don't shrink, become bigger, become more visible, let them know who you are and why these decisions need to be made in the positive for the emergency management bureau or section or whoever you're working for, right? And that's what it is. And so, yes, the dilemma is we don't own the assets, right? The solution is becoming a valuable team member, and becoming that person who is an expert in emergency management, which we say we are, and so to make them come to you for advice and for counsel.
Yeah, it's being a resource, and it's identifying the resources that are out there. Because if they say no, for whatever reason, we got to engage in a process to figure out, is there another way, instead of just taking that no for what it is, right? And a lot of that too is if you can engage with discussion and engage with a line of really thinking about the process, you can become resourceful with so many other people, and they may even contribute to becoming and getting you the assets that you need. It's identifying the resources that are not only available to you, but could potentially be available to you. Allocation and reallocation of already available resources are important. You say you need that disaster trailer, and they say, no, you can't have it. Do you already have a trailer sitting around somewhere that could be reallocated? There may be, but you got to look for it. Or maybe, identifying working with another department who never uses it, and it just sits there all the time. Whose trailer is this? Can we use it? Can we reallocate it? These are it's called being resourceful. They're saying I get a no. Okay, it doesn't mean I stop needing the thing, right, whatever it may be. So they say no, okay, that resource is a no for right now. Is there somewhere else I can get that? And I think we lose sight of that sometimes, and we just go off of what's in front of us. We got a no, we got declined, we got turned down, and we go and sit down and we pout about it. When we can turn around and say, okay, well they're telling me no. Well, I'll find another way. It's that determination that really boils back down to, like, are you being visible? Are you doing what you're supposed to be doing in the job? You identified a need. You applied for that need. That need got turned down. Does that mean the need goes away? No. And the need is still there. What are you going to do to fill that need? That's emergency management.
I tell my students at the beginning of the class when I was teaching, especially in my master's program, everybody here has an A, right? You right now, day one, everybody is an A student, and I say you earn your grade after that. And what I mean by this is the work that you show and do either keeps you at an A or reduces you to a B or reduces you to a C, right? The B and the C is earned. I didn't give you those. I'm giving you an A, right? But you earn that B, you earn that C by the lack of work that you do, or you keep the A by the work that you've been doing, the good work that you do. And so it's a reverse on going, everybody's a C student and you have to like earn the A, right? No, you're going to get an A if you do the work. If you follow that syllabus and do what you're supposed to do, you're going to get it. And so when the student comes over and says, "Oh, you gave me a no, you earned a B, you earned a C," right? Whatever that is. My point about this is, I think when you go to the budget, and we're about to hit budget where I'm at, when you go to the budget argument, right? Your budget is already, like I said, you could ask for $1 bazillion, right? But you have to justify it. Justify why you need that. And if you don't, right, and if you don't get it, It's because you didn't do your job of articulating why you needed this. It's not they didn't give you the budget. It's that you didn't say why you needed it over another, because there's only $100 in your pocket. You have to be able to divvy that up properly between everybody, right? So you have to earn that money. So you have to explain why you need to have that money, and so I hate the victim mentality that sometimes that we in emergency management portray, that we didn't get the money, we're the bastard children of emergency management, of emergency services, whatever. The fire and the police, they get everything in their budget. Well, they have big costs that they have to deal with. There are some legal requirements for them to have the equipment that they have, right? That disaster trailer, there's no legal requirement anywhere that says that we have to have it. Although it will help us do our job better and it will help the community, but there's no legal requirement to keep it. So so we have to justify even stronger of why we need to spend that $200,000 on a trailer. And I know keep going back to that one particular item, but that's just one we could visualize pretty well. We're coming here close to the end, Dan. What's your final word on how do we fix, or how do we deal with the emergency manager's dilemma, if you will?
It all boils back down to, for me, is the consistent effort. Being consistent in our not only our effort, but our messaging and the activities that we consistently do. Like, we have to be consistently putting out information, showing ourselves, speaking at events, teaching and education being some of the biggest things that we have to do for an organization, for a jurisdiction, for a community, because we're educating them on what it is that we do, why we do it, why it's important, how it benefits them. But the consistency there really does drive it home to, you're not invisible. Being that consistent voice, that consistent activity of an emergency manager, what you're doing all the time. I think if we can bring consistency into what we do as emergency managers and in emergency management, we'll elevate ourselves as professionals and the profession overall.
Absolutely. Sorry about that. I got distracted here for a second. Dan, no, you're absolutely correct on that. And, the consistency is key. The resiliency and tenacity are what really make our profession what we are. And I appreciate everybody out there who is doing it. This is definitely a job not for the weak-hearted by any means. And so, keep up there and keep your head up. And we all know it, right? And, if you ever need anything, any ideas or anything like that, please feel free to reach out to us here in EMN. But specifically for Dan and I, we're always available through LinkedIn, at least, to have conversations. And that's one of the things that I love about our profession, is that we do help each other out. We are very collaborative. I don't know very many people, I can't say no one, I'm sure there is out there, that turns anyone down when they have questions. Matter of fact, the more people I know in this field, we go out of our way to help each other out. So there's that as well. All right, Dan. Well, the weather is bad in the Northeast. Everybody who's out there, please, keep your head down, stay warm. Don't do anything too crazy. The snow will eventually stop and melt. But I know that there's some dangers there for those of you that are working. My heart and mind is definitely there with you. For those of us that are in the warmer climates, if you need anything, give us a call. We'll try to do what we can do for you. And until next time, everybody, please stay safe, stay warm, and
when the sirens scream out loud, we're the voice that breaks the cloud. Heads out high when things go wrong, we'll guide you through with strength and song. Disaster strikes without a sound, chaos reigns but we're around. Public safety in our hands, steady, strong in every land. Emergency management, we're a guide in the night. In storms and strife, we